One explosive one-liner made him a legend. One tragic surgery took him too soon. This cast hides more than bullets. In 1985, a nearly unstoppable action hero named John Matrix tore through a jungle of mercenaries to save his kidnapped daughter, and in the process, Commando became one of the defining action films of its decade. Produced on a modest budget and shot in just 45 days, it turned Arnold Schwarzenegger into a full-blown box office titan and gave audiences one of cinema's most quotable villains gauntlet ever assembled. More than 4 decades later, some of these faces are still lighting up screens. Some have quietly stepped away from Hollywood altogether, and others are gone but unforgettable. Here's where the cast of Commando stands today. Arnold Schwarzenegger, Colonel John Matrix. Arnold Schwarzenegger played Colonel John Matrix, a retired Special Forces operative pulled back into violence when mercenaries kidnap his daughter to force him into a political assassination. The role cemented Schwarzenegger's persona as the ultimate one-man army, delivering deadpan one-liners between explosions in a way few actors before him ever had. Before Commando, he'd already broken through with The Terminator, but this film proved he could carry a franchise-style action vehicle entirely on his own. Behind the scenes, the production reportedly went over budget, pushing costs from $8 million to $10 million. Afterward, Schwarzenegger's career exploded through Predator, Total Recall, and Terminator 2, Judgment Day, before he stepped away from acting to serve 2 terms as governor of California. He later returned to film with the Expendables series and Terminator, Genesis. Now in his late 70s, Schwarzenegger remains active in Hollywood and has discussed potential future appearances tied to the Predator franchise, keeping his action legacy alive well into 2026. Rae Dawn Chong, Cindy. Rae Dawn Chong played Cindy, the off-duty flight attendant unexpectedly swept into Matrix's rescue mission after a chance encounter in a shopping mall. Her character brought sharp wit and unexpected courage to a film otherwise dominated by muscle and firepower, becoming a fan-favorite reluctant hero. Before Commando, Chong had already won a Genie Award, Canada's equivalent of the Oscar, for her performance in 1981's Quest for Fire. She would go on to appear in Steven Spielberg's The Color Purple the very same year Commando was released. The daughter of comedian Tommy Chong, she built a career spanning nearly 100 film and television credits. Today, Rae Dawn Chong, now in her 60s, remains active in independent filmmaking as an actress, writer, and director, and continues connecting with longtime fans through social media and personalized video messages, reflecting fondly on her Commando days while pursuing new creative projects. Alyssa Milano, Jenny Matrix. Alyssa Milano played Jenny Matrix, John's spirited young daughter, whose kidnapping sets the entire film's plot into motion. Just a teenager during filming, Milano brought warmth and vulnerability that grounded the film's chaos in genuine emotional stakes, making audiences care about the mayhem surrounding her rescue. The role came right as she was becoming a household name through the sitcom Who's the Boss?, which ran alongside her film work throughout the decade. She later became a defining face of the 1990s and 2000s with the hit series Charmed, playing Phoebe Halliwell for 8 seasons. Milano has since built a career blending acting with outspoken activism, including her role in popularizing the #MeToo movement online. She made her Broadway debut starring as Roxy Hart in Chicago. Now in her 50s, Milano continues acting, producing, and advocating publicly, remaining one of the most recognizable child stars turned lasting industry figures. Dan Hedaya, General Arias. Dan Hedaya played General Arias, the deposed South American dictator who blackmails Matrix into carrying out an assassination to restore his own power. His calm, calculating menace made Arias a memorably cold villain amid the film's over-the-top violence. Before Commando, Hedaya had built a reputation through the Coen brothers' Blood Simple and a recurring role as Nick Tortelli on the sitcom Cheers. The 1980s and 90s became his most prolific stretch, appearing in The Addams Family, Clueless, The Usual Suspects, Nixon, and The First Wives Club. He later appeared in David Lynch's acclaimed Mulholland Drive and had a recurring role on Yes, Dear. Now in his 80s, Hedaya has largely stepped back from the spotlight in recent years after a career spanning more than 5 decades, remembered as one of Hollywood's most reliable and versatile character actors of his generation. Vernon Wells, Captain Bennett. Vernon Wells played Captain Bennett, Matrix's former subordinate who fakes his own death and turns mercenary out of a twisted mix of admiration and hatred for his old commander. Director Mark L. Lester specifically sought Wells for the role because of his intense screen presence in Mad Max 2, believing he was the only actor who could believably go toe-to-toe with Schwarzenegger. The character's chainmail vest and menacing grin made Bennett an instantly iconic villain. Before Commando, Wells had already built his reputation in Australian film and television before breaking into Hollywood. He later appeared in Inner Space and Power Rangers: Time Force. In January 2025, Wells reportedly lost his Pacific Palisades home and memorabilia in the devastating Los Angeles wildfires. Now in his 70s, he remains active in the industry, continuing to act and produce independent films well into 2026, proving his resilience both on-screen and off. James Olson, Major General Franklin Kirby. James Olson played Major General Franklin Kirby, Matrix's former commanding officer who delivers the grim news that his old unit is being hunted down one by one. Olson brought a weathered gravitas to the role, grounding the film's opening tension with quiet authority. Long before Commando, he'd built a respected stage and screen career, earning acclaim in Rachel, alongside Paul Newman and Joan Woodward, and starring in the acclaimed sci-fi thriller The Andromeda Strain. His career spanned decades of television guest roles on shows like Hawaii Five-0 and Murder, She Wrote. Olson largely retired from acting in the early 1990s, choosing a quieter life away from Hollywood spotlight. He passed away on April 17, 2022, at his home in Malibu, California, at the age of 91. Never having married, he was remembered by family and colleagues as a soft-spoken, dedicated craftsman whose performances always carried quiet weight. David Patrick Kelly, Sully. David Patrick Kelly played Sully, Arias's slippery associate whose interrogation scene, dangled off a cliff by Matrix, became one of the film's most quoted sequences. Kelly's nervy, unpredictable energy made Sully a memorably squirrely antagonist despite limited screen time. He'd already achieved cult status playing the unhinged gang leader Luther in 1979's The Warriors, delivering a line that remains one of cinema's most referenced quotes. Beyond Commando, Kelly built an eclectic career working repeatedly with acclaimed directors, including Spike Lee on Malcolm X and Crooklyn, and David Lynch on Wild at Heart and the original Twin Peaks. He also played President Harry Truman in Flags of Our Fathers. Now in his 70s, Kelly remains active as both an actor and musician, having returned for the 2017 Twin Peaks revival, continuing a career that spans nearly 5 decades of distinctive character work.